Hello and welcome to Fresh Face Comics, the comic book podcast where a lifelong comic book reader guides his friend through the world of comics for the first time. My name is Joey Morgan, the aforementioned lifelong reader. With me as always is Jacob Licklider, the aforementioned newbie.
I don't think I've ever seen an interesting character slide so far into mediocrity so quickly.
Yeah, today we're talking about Knightquest, the second and unfortunately longest chunk of the Nightfall saga. Um, this is Knightquest.
This is Knightquest.
This is Knightquest.
Uh,
Jacob, what happened last time on the Nightfall saga?
well, okay, so just a reminder to our listeners, we have already released an episode on Batman Nightfall, which is great event, 9 out of 10. Really interesting stuff. Bruce Wayne needed a nap, and he kept being worn down by Bane, our new villain, culminating in his back being broken, and Bruce deciding that Jean-Paul Valley, for dubious reasons, um, who is Azrael, an avenging hero with a potential saint inside of his head,
Saint Dumbass.
Saint Dumas,
Dumbass.
should take up the mantle of the Bat, and Knightquest is technically
Azrael's
two
time
story arcs. It's Azrael's time as Batman, as well
But
as
the trouble is, we already had like nearly 300 pages of Azrael as Batman last time.
yes,
So
yes, and those 300 pages were 300 fairly good pages.
yeah, so one just has to ask themselves, why is this volume Knightquest even longer?
So long. Now, I posit that it's meant to be a descent into madness for the character, which it kind of is. However,
That madness is already there, though.
the madness is there and
say.
just needs to be brought out. There is a clear building point. The sad part is that building point, that climax, doesn't come um, right until Shadow of one of the last Shadow of the Bat issue, Shadow of the Bat. Um, I believe it's 28.
Yeah, I think that's the last one.
28. Um, Meanwhile, while this is running, and what's not collected in the paperback volumes that we're covering today is The Search, which is what Bruce is doing in rescuing Tim Drake's father.
Mm.
And I hate to say it, that story, while not a perfect or great story, is infinitely more interesting.
Mm.
Because Bruce has to deal with the fact that he is wheelchair bound, is having to rely on others to save the woman he is, I suppose, fallen in love with, and Tim Drake's father.
Mm-hmm.
In the actual Knightquest issues that we're covering, which is the Crusade arc, which should already tell you something about like the tone.
Mm-hmm.
We are following Azrael for all of the issues, and that's a problem.
Yeah. There's like even barely any Tim Drake in it either. So you can't even really like balance it out much, I'd say.
Yeah. And probably the reason for that, honestly, is because with like in the early issues, that's when they launched the first Tim Drake Robin ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one that lasted a couple hundred issues.
Mm-hmm.
So like marketing wise, it makes sense. But it also leaves the character of Azrael having to basically be the headliner of 4
Mm-hmm.
4 to 5 books, and
he's just not 4 books worth of a character. He's not.
At least not how they set him up here. I could imagine him being 4 books.
But whereas, like, again, I mean, the apt comparison here is Death of Superman. When you told your post-death / breaking story, and then you supplemented it with a replacement character, Death of Superman did, and they had 4 separate characters each one to carry each of those 4 separate titles.
Well, they also the big sin here is that Azrael doesn't have a supporting cast.
No,
like, and the supporting cast members that do show up, Jim Gordon. The writers to facilitate the story kind of make Gordon an idiot.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, like I
He
wrote
gets some
down
decent character moments towards the end, but
towards the end, yeah, when the penny is allowed to actually drop. The
mhm.
only characters with any brain cells in this arc are the Joker and Catwoman.
And they're the best things about this collection, and it's like what, a grand total of like 7 issues out of 27.
Out of 27.
And even then, like I like Catwoman's characterization in it, but her story I think it just isn't quite up like as strong as what her character is going through in that. Um,
The story's also just weak because with Nightfall featuring almost basically all the Batman villains at the time,
mhm.
now there's a hole.
Yeah,
And nothing really fills that hole. Like, so the writers of this story are Chuck Dixon, Doug Mensch, Alan Grant, and Joe Duffy, who does the two Catwoman issues.
mhm.
And they're all trying. I think Alan Grant might come across the best.
Oh, definitely, I would say so.
Because he does all the Shadow of the Bat issues, and like the Shadow of the Bat issues are honestly the standout here.
Hmm.
Like they're not perfect, but they at least have an idea, try to tell a self-contained story.
Yeah,
Um, and the overarching plot, like the overarching, I guess, villain of the arc doesn't help that it's a very edgy 90s villain
mm.
who in reading I forgot like, oh wait, this villain is still a thing? I thought we had moved past this.
Yeah,
Um and it's a shame. Honestly, what would improve Knightquest a lot is just bringing Tim in a bit more, just bringing in characters to actually interact with John Paul Valley as a character.
yeah,
Because so much of it is John Paul Valley on his own, inside his own head, when you have writers who haven't quite really established what the inside of that head is
yeah.
and are just pushing him to the darkest point because, well, at this point it's 1994.
Hmm.
Superman's back. We are in pure edgy comic book territory. Like, and I don't think the writers have really an understanding of how to tell sort of that dark, edgy story well.
Mm.
Um,
Uh, I think that actually kind of interestingly brings us into one of our Twitter questions, and starts that off. Or I guess rather than our Twitter questions in this first case. This one actually comes from Discord. 09 Phil J says, "I have seen it argued that Knightquest is a satire of edgy '90s comics. How far do you agree with this?" I strongly disagree with that
oh yeah, I
because
disagree. So
um, what?
when I think of edgy '90s stuff, I think of Image, like just
Mm,
the brand.
yeah,
Um,
I think also. Nyquist doesn't feel self-aware enough to be a satire of other '90s comics.
oh no, definitely not.
No, like it's
If you're trying to be a satire, the satire you have to write a good satire. You really have to be pointed with your satire, and
mhm,
Knightquest isn't pointed. It's it's meandering. It's going over the same couple of plot beats
mhm,
just continually until we get to a point. Basically, until we get to the point where um, the rest of the search has been published, so they can actually tie everything back together and
yeah.
then
And by that
move
point,
on.
because we both started Night's End, because these things are so long, we have to get started on the Marley. Um, like you can see, like in Night's End, like even early on in those issues, there, like they're double length because they're already running out of time because they need to start like wrapping up the story arc. And it's like, why did you waste so much time on Night Quest if you had to start wrapping it up that early?
Yeah.
Um, it really makes no fucking sense, and it makes the meandering nature of this collection even more mind-boggling. But
Every issue in Night Quest where there is a cameo from Tim Drake for like a panel or two,
mhm,
you just sort of feel. When reading, I felt that draining of we could have had we could have brought in Tim and brought in, interesting characters and things.
Mhm.
Um,
I would have loved to have seen like Oracle interact with Azrael at some point, but that
yeah.
just doesn't happen, you know. Um, Hell, Nightwing for that matter. I mean, like we're gonna get some of that later on, in Night's End, but like, why is none of that here? Why are like none of our other main characters in the Batman mythos like interacting with Azrael here? It's
Honestly,
so.
I'm also surprised because I'm surprised Superman doesn't show up at all.
Mm.
Like,
Well,
he,
apparently Azrael's cameo in Return of Superman is sufficient enough, Jacob.
it really isn't.
It is
Like,
not. No,
that would have been
not at all.
fascinating. If
Yeah.
you want to do a satire of dark and edgy, bring in Superman.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to go to our next, actually, Discord question from our friend Andrew, who's been on the podcast and will be back on the podcast very soon, actually.
Yes, in a couple
Um,
of episodes, which I'm excited for.
Andrew says, "How do you think this story holds up against Nightfall? Do you think it could have been condensed into one event?" Yes, absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. A
So
million
yeah,
times yes.
I know actually I was talking to you in DMs, sort of near where I finished it. I think we do the main bulk of the Crusade in 6 or 7 issues and have an infinitely stronger story.
Yeah, yeah, I
Um,
agree.
because you have to get to that point in Shadow of the Bat 28
Mhm.
sooner than you do.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
like I would. There's some nice side stories. Like Joey and I both had a lot of fun with the Joker's issues, when he shows up,
Mhm.
but they aren't moving our characters forward.
No, no, that Joker story is really enjoyable and probably the best thing about this collection. But like, it is not enough to raise my overall opinion of it. Um, that said, I want to go into our next Twitter question. Jamie at Jamie underscore season 7 says, "Why does Jacob love it so much? And how did they manage to have several hundred pages of nothing happening?" Which half of that question would you care to answer first?
Well, so some of the arts by Tom Grummett and Jim Balance, a nice artist, and Graham Nolan and Kelly Jones covers. So
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
there's quite a bit that's pretty to look at.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's nice to flip through. It's a very
yeah,
big, if it's a very big art book. Yeah.
yeah,
It's,
yeah, yeah. But it's not
um,
enjoyable.
yeah. And several hundred pages of nothing happening. I mean, I really have no clue how they did that. Like
It
how someone can accomplish that is beyond
Well, what I
me.
think might have happened is, so one of the issues with the Death and Return of Superman, especially Funeral from a Friend, was the editors essentially mandated when the funeral had to be over and Reign of the Superman could begin. And so
Mhm.
you had some issues where like things were stretching and they were trying to fill plots, but they were at least doing some interesting character work.
Yeah.
Because this is Batman, and this is Batman post Batman 89 and Batman Returns, I don't think editors really were looking in. Like, the three writers in charge of these books are writers who were basically given free reign to do whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
So nobody reined in these writers. So that's how you fill 600 plus pages of
Yeah.
very little.
Um, which brings us to our next Twitter question from Kian at Kian the Quark says, "Would you rather read The Dark Knight Strikes again, or have Bane break your back?" Now, here's the thing. I've thought about this question all day since this came in.
Yes,
Um,
same.
so, like, genuinely, am I allowed to take liberties when reading The Dark Knight Strikes Again? Like, am I able to like make something fun of it? Can I do like a drinking game to reading Dark Knight Strikes Again? Because I feel like I could at least make that fun, you know? Or do I have to just read it straight again? Because if that's the stipulation, then Bane can break my back any day. But if I could have some fun with it, then like I feel like I could make Strikes Again a bit of fun, you know?
Yeah, yeah, like get some friends, make a drinking game out of it. Um, don't know who we would subject to the Dark Knight Strikes Again a second time.
Yeah.
Um,
You know what? I would even just have fun getting drunk myself reading it.
that's true. I mean, we could also try to get Kian and subject him to the Dark Knight Strikes
Yeah,
Again.
yeah, that's true. Kian, let's
Um,
set this up.
let's set
Um,
this up. Dark Knight Strikes Again drinking game one.
yeah.
Um,
Anyway, next up, from Rules Panda at Jonathan787386610. I hate reading that every time. Please change your at. You're great. Anyway, this says best Bane adaptation. I did mention this last episode actually. I do think it's Arkham Origins, personally.
Yeah.
But
I'd
from what
have to
you've
say the
experienced,
animated series,
animated
but
series, yeah. But you've never
but
seen Origins, for
I
sure.
haven't played Origins, so
Yeah.
I cannot comment.
Cool.
Also, you know what? Kind of like I think it was the right decision not to include Bane post Nightfall into Knight's Quest,
Mm.
but you need to have some sort of a presence,
Yeah,
really.
yeah. I mean, I don't know how far are into Night's End, but Blake Bane makes a small appearance kind of early on, and
Yes, I've
yeah,
seen
and
that.
I think that's great. Like that scene alone is better than most of Night Quest.
It's
um,
fascinating because not to jump ahead to what's going to be the next episode, but
mhm.
immediately reading that first issue of Knight's End,
Yeah. Oh
things
yeah.
just
It just
click back into place.
yeah. Um, anyway, our last set of Twitter questions come from Mason at the GD256. His first question is, what would you do to fix this story, or at the very least improve it? Me personally, I would cut it all.
I would shorten it.
Like just that,
It's
like that is
telling.
the best thing you can do is just shorten it so much.
It's
Um,
absolutely telling that when Nightfall was originally collected in trades in like 94, 95, they skipped Knightquest entirely.
yeah,
They jumped straight ahead to Knight's End.
it just does not need to be there at all. Um, but whatever. His second question reads, how does this compare to the other part twos or volume twos that you've read for the podcast? I'm curious for your opinion on that, Jacob.
Oh, it's the weakest. Well, second weakest if you want to count Strikes Again as a part two
Oh yeah,
to
yeah.
Returns. But yeah, this is the second weakest. It's very weak. And but like what's interesting is I can't be like Dark Knight Strikes Again was a very viscerally angry read,
Mhm.
like engaging
This
with
is
the
this is just mind numbing. Like I have no thoughts. I have no thoughts. I have pages of notes, but it's mostly just like vague events that happen. And like
I have notes. I have things.
I have a lot of like disappointed looking faces that I drew in here.
Here's the thing
um,
with like
towards the end.
the last three issues that we're covering perhaps have my most notes.
Mm.
Um, because that's when the plot actually moves.
Yeah,
Um,
that is true.
and uh, I think again part of the big problem is there's just a lack of characterization. They made Azrael really one note in his descent into madness.
Mm.
He has nobody to talk to.
Mm.
Um,
Except for Saint Dumbass.
yeah, and
Um,
and
yeah.
Saint Dumas isn't really a character.
No,
Like
he's just an entity that like yells at Azrael a lot.
and contradicts itself a
Yeah.
lot,
Yeah.
depending on who's writing him.
Yeah.
Um,
Anyway, Mason's last question reads, why do you think Gotham needs Batman specifically and not a new superhero? We kind of, it's interesting because we touched on this a tiny bit last episode, where it was like, sort of like the whole reason that like, oh yeah, well, we can't get Dick over here is apparently Bruce thinks that like Dick is his own man and Dick can't be Batman. But it's like, okay, well, does Gotham specifically need Batman? Um, and obviously the answer is yes, by nature of just what the comics have always like perpetrated as like one of the big messages of the Batman mythos. But I'm curious for your take on that, actually.
so I think the answer is yet because Batman's a symbol and the Bat iconography is so iconic.
Mm.
But I also think that there is a place in the larger DC universe, especially since for a story like this is the mid '90s, which is kind of the codification of the Bat family as a concept.
Hmm.
Because this is when you got the Tim Drake Robin book. This is when Catwoman had her own ongoing, and this is when Nightwing like got its own title.
Hmm.
So I think I think Gotham needs the Bat family. Um,
Mm.
and that's kind of the point. Um, and I think I love the idea of a corrupted Batman, like specifically who's not Bruce Wayne, who's gone mad with power. Like
Hmm.
this should be fascinating.
Yeah.
This should be an
And
interesting
I think it
examination.
was fascinating last volume, but like we need to start doing new things with it. And this is over 600 pages of nothing new, really. Um, so I guess with that said, I think this is usually when we move into spoilers and we say, "Hey, get the book and read it if you haven't already." But honestly, I think you can skip it.
You can skip it.
Um,
You know what? If you want to read it, I I'd recommend. I mean, we'll have the links down below to buy it as always.
yeah, I'll have Amazon
But
links down there,
check
just
if your
like always.
library has it. Use your local library. Because there that this isn't one that you need. There's a reason. Even then, I'd recommend skimming a lot of the middle.
Yeah.
Like skim a lot of the middle. The last 3 or 4 issues read outright, but you'll be able to tell because that's when the plot actually moves. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, because that's like it's so weird because this is an outright not great book. This is
Hmm.
the second, I think, outright bad full book that we've had on the
Hmm.
podcast. Um, and
Oddly
I
enough, both Bat books.
both bad books, both bad
Yeah.
books.
I mean, probably just, because of the sheer amount of Batman we've read on the podcast.
That and the fact that like Wanted Hal Jordan, had it just been Wanted Hal Jordan, that would have joined the ranks of the bad.
Yeah,
But that had Mystery of the Star Sapphires, which is good actually.
it is. It is.
So that
Um,
balances things out. Um,
anyway, I guess let's get into our spoiler section now.
yeah. So
So, all right. Detective Comics 667
667.
opens us up. Once again, a very muscly Batman drawn by Kelly Jones.
Yes, yes.
Way too
You
muscly.
know what? I do like the Azrael costume. I think it's grown on me.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's very 90s, but it's cool. So this is
Hmm.
the start of the Crusade.
Yes.
And there is one thing that I would like to note throughout all of this. So Nightfall, throughout all the issues, had the Nightfall emblem in the corner with a number in it, and the bat symbol was slowly being eclipsed
Hmm.
and broken like the moon. And Night's End looks to be doing something similar, just without numbers.
Yeah.
Knightquest doesn't,
Hmm.
and that's a
It's
problem.
that is because there it is like Nightfall and Night's End is meant to like symbolize like this continual change with those little symbols up in the corner. This I think sort of symbolizes exactly what the story is doing, which is nothing.
It's
um,
creating this holding pattern.
yeah.
Um, Now, this first story is basically 2 issues of Detective Comics. It's 667 and 668. Now, mind you, Bane has just been defeated in the last issue completely. Azrael is Batman. Tim has been forced to accept it.
Mhm.
And the immediate threat
Is cowboys.
is random cowboys.
Yes.
I think it's just because Chuck Dixon liked the idea of instead of Wild Wild West, Wild Wild East.
Yes, and it's
Like,
just a title.
yeah.
That's that's all it
And you know
is.
what? It could have been fascinating if we played up the camp nature of this being cowboys.
Yep, but we don't.
But Dixon isn't. I know about who Dixon is as a writer. He would never write camp
Yeah.
intentionally.
No.
Um, and that isn't to say there aren't. This isn't actually like a terrible issue. Um,
It's okay.
it's pretty okay. The worst things
We
about
get
it
the
are the
new sort of
cowboys.
yeah, we get the Cowboys. We get the new like train Batmobile thing, which I actually pretty like. I pretty much I like that quite a bit. Um,
I
oh,
I
it's just a cool
love
design.
I love this. I love the initial isolation of Azrael.
We
Um,
had a great look into what a lot of this story's gonna do with the Saint Dumbass visits, um, and it's I don't know. That's all. Those are all the notes I have on this issue. It's the Cowboys, the new Batmobile, and Saint Dumbass.
Yeah.
That's it.
I like the fact that Harold is a character. We don't see him here,
That's
but
true. That's
Harold
true.
Harold gets to be a character.
That he does.
And Tim gets one of his more substantial appearances.
Yes. In a bit with like what his housekeeper
His
or some, or
housekeeper.
yeah, he like sneaks past her, and I don't know. That's pretty much it.
And finds the Batcave bricked off, so it's like, well, I guess I can no longer be Batman's sidekick.
Hmm.
Um, Also, so these cowboys, right? We don't ever actually get anything about like what their deal is.
Hmm.
They're just cowboy brothers.
Yeah, that's
And
all it is. It's just a gimmick. They aren't even characters. Their dialogue isn't even that like fun or snappy or anything. It's just I don't know.
I will say I like the parallelism on the Detective Comics 668 cover.
Yeah, I guess
Uh,
we're moving into that one.
yeah.
Yeah, Kelly Jones loves doing this pose a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I'd argue this is intentional because this is
Well,
the
yeah,
issue
it's meant to be
where
just like the Bane thing. Yeah.
Tim is so by the end of this issue, Tim is kicked out completely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That and we deal with the Cowboys.
We deal with the Cowboys,
We deal with the Cowboys.
but they are not interesting.
Yep.
I will say I love Tim's plot. Tim's plot is great.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the stronger issue of this little two-parter here.
Because
Uh,
we get quite a bit of Tim. We find
mhm.
you really you,
We even like focus in a bit on his home life, which I really like.
yeah, which is something that like I think it's things like this that help elevate comics in general, superhero comics, is getting to see sort of like other characters and their personal lives in depth. Like Tim gets a driver's license because his dad is currently disabled, so he needs to be able to drive.
Hmm.
And we find out Bruce, being a father figure to Tim, bought him a car
Hmm.
once he got his license. And that's genuinely great. I also love the way Tim reacts to sneaking back into the Batcave and
Yeah.
finding.
We see that like Azrael has made like a shooting range of like made up comprised of like Batman villains. Um, and like Tim like doesn't react kindly to that, of course. But I like there's some great inner monologue here where he's like he like looks around here, he's like, oh yeah, the memories are still here, but none of the memories are his. Um, it's just cool. I don't know. I like that bit of commentary on Tim's character there. Um,
Also, the gaudiness of Tim's car. Like,
oh yeah, it's
it's
awful.
right
I love it.
revved, but it suits Tim Drake.
Well, yeah.
Tim Drake is that
It's
kind of
got a little
extra.
license plate that says Redbird, and um, but yeah, then Azrael finds him, and there's this little fight between the two of them. But obviously, Tim's not going to win that, so that's the end of the issue.
I will say what's interesting, right? This is the backdoor pilot to Tim's Robin series.
Mhm.
Because in the Omni, you get the first two issues of Tim's Robin series,
That must be
which
nice.
it was a welcome surprise.
Nice, and
Um,
it's good Chuck Dixon, so
yeah,
there's that.
it's good Chuck Dixon. It's more art by Tom Grummett. He does the art for those issues, um, and it basically it it finishes that fight because the detective issue ends on a cliffhanger, but the next issue in the collection doesn't pick up that cliffhanger.
Yeah, whatever.
And if
Um,
it sounds like we're going kind of fast, it's because
we have well, first off, we have 27 issues to cover.
but also
Uh,
like unlike Nightfall where there were at least things happening in every issue.
yeah, there's not here. There's just not. And if there is stuff happening, it's a lot of repeating of what we've already established. Um, that said, I do love the opening of our next issue, Shadow of the Bat 19. I do want to read this straight because I damn near quoted the whole thing in my notes. It's the center monologue from Azrael as he's like fighting off these criminals. It says, I hear the glass break from a block away. Since I took on this mission, all my senses seem heightened, all my reactions accelerated. Sometimes when I ride the night, I feel like I own this city, that Bruce Wayne was only filling in until I came along. which is just a really great inner monologue. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'll
it's
say
awesome.
the conceit of these two Shadow of the Bat issues is actually really interesting.
Oh, with the Taliban.
With the Taliban, with the
Yeah.
idea of Azrael having to essentially clean up a loose end that Bruce obviously left untied.
Hmm.
Um, it's it's an interesting story, and if there wasn't so much of just the middle of this, like, because there are occasionally really good ideas here, but if
Hmm.
you streamline them, tie them together very nicely, and you could have a really tight 7 to 12 issue plot for the Crusade, and
Hmm.
not the 20+ issues.
Just let Alan Grant write the whole thing because
Let
his
Alan
issue
Grant write the
because
whole
his
thing.
issues are really the best things here.
Yeah, I mean,
Um.
it also helps that the search is written by Denny O'Neil.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
most of that is Denny O'Neil, so it's even if it's not Denny O'Neil at his best, it's still.
Which I don't think we mentioned on the podcast. You have actually read Dennis O'Neil before,
I've read the Ra's al Ghul collection.
which you never
Um,
even told me that you read all that. I just saw that in like messages somewhere else, and I was like, oh wow, you did. Cool.
yeah, I just read it on a whim. I was
It's a
like,
great collection, isn't it?
it's very fun. You get some
Yeah.
Neil Adams art, you get some other artists. I would rather be
You
talking
also
about
just straight
that.
up you also just straight up get the script of a BTAS episode in there.
Yeah, yeah. Um, done really, really well. It's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah. Also, I will say, I love the Shadow of the Bat issues arts. Like
Oh yeah.
all of their art,
They're so fucking
it's
good.
elevated. It's a couple different artists, but mainly it's Brett Blevins who
Mhm.
does most of the Shadow of the Bat issues, and they're great. Alan Grant is kind of like the reverse Roger Stern.
Mm.
If Roger Stern issues in Death of Superman almost stopped the story kind of dead and filled with dialogue, Grant knows how to keep the story moving and
Mhm.
actually introduce a plot point.
And writes out some really great layouts for his artists to work with. Like
Yes.
you can just see it here. Like there's so much style here. Really great stuff. Also, I just wanted to comment also on the Tallyman's design, which I absolutely adore. Just a really really cool design. I love that.
Yeah, very almost scarecrow-esque, but very stylized
Mhm.
and there seems to be a distinct awareness of other series that had been going on DC at the time. Like with the Shadow of the Bat issues, especially, some of the art would occasionally feel like art you'd see out of the Sandman.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
like I mean, just look at the Tallyman's design. Like
Yeah,
it,
oh yeah, yeah. And there's this great like a little rehash of Jean Paul's backstory in the Order of Saint Dumbass. And it just I love the layout there. Where you see like Azrael in his original cloak and his design, and I don't know, I just love that. It's a great layout. And again, Blevins' art is, or actually no, this isn't Blevins. Who's on this one?
this this is
Giordano.
yeah, Vince Giordano.
That's it, yeah.
Um,
Um
because Shadow of the Bat turned out to be also like sort of the main vehicle where the search was also going on for Batman issues. Like they were switching artists,
mhm.
um, which makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
but the layout of Azrael's backstory is great, and it honestly it makes the backstory feel more complete than the Nightfall issues did.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Um,
Once again, Alan
Now,
Grant just knows what he's doing,
if they didn't
and you can tell.
continue to rehash the backstory quite a bit,
We do that a
like
lot, yeah.
yeah, like
But again,
I,
Alan Grant does it with really interesting layouts plotted out here, and just knows how to at least make it interesting. But not so much elsewhere. And I guess we'll move into Shadow of the Bat 20 then.
yes.
Um,
Um,
Again with fantastic layouts. Some that go even sideways in this one.
Yeah,
Uh,
my first note was there's a vertical page. We open with a vertical page, like,
yeah.
and I
Um,
love the idea of this trying to have Azrael question his identity a bit.
Because this is also the one where like Azrael damn near like almost kills the Tally Man. Um,
Yeah,
he goes really hard at this, and a lot of those pages where he's like beating on are like washed in these really like deep pinks and reds. It's really great stuff. I love it.
and there's this great parallel with the idea of debts being paid, Azrael having a debt as the Batman.
Hmm.
Um, it's really good. It's really good stuff, despite like these are issues I would keep if in my sort of streamlined version of the story.
Mm-hmm.
But I would try to move them quickly as forward to the point where Azrael actually does break. Because that's the
Yeah,
problem is
yeah.
after this, we don't actually really get Azrael being pushed to the brink.
Yeah, this is one of the only cases where it actually happens, like where he comes really close to killing the Tally Man, and then we just don't deal with that much else beyond that. Like that's about it. Um, yeah,
Uh,
I don't know. And then
that's
we get
that's
this great aftermath scene too, where Bullock finds the Tally Man like all beaten up and scarred after his fight with Azrael. I just like that little scene.
and this is where you sort of get the GCPD are idiots in this. Like
Yes.
I can accept Bullock being a dumbass, but not Gordon or Montoya or even Sarah. Like,
Yeah.
so one of you three have to like figure this out immediately, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Anyway, shall we move on? This
yes,
is
yes.
Batman 501. I actually have this is one of those that I have as a single issue. I have this one.
Really.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's also
Um,
this is also where the cover of the collection comes from.
I remember I think I have a fair few single Batman Nightfall, Knightquest, and Night's End issues because I can think when I like first started collecting comics, I was like, oh my god, this comic shop that I like has a bunch of Nightfall issues. I'm gonna get a bunch of those, and it's a big famous story, and I didn't know what I was doing.
You
So
didn't know you were well. Look, 2/3 of it are probably worth it.
yeah, yeah. Um, anyway, we go into this one. Oh God, what is this one?
This
Um,
one is code name Mecros, and
oh,
okay,
that's right, Mecros.
yeah,
Oh
this is
fuck.
where things get really
Oh,
90s
I fucking hate this.
in
Oh,
a
I
really
hate these two issues. I hate these two issues. Nothing happens.
yeah. This is where no, this is this. It's such a shame because my God, the cover is great.
Oh,
Like,
the covers are so good.
and so like, so this is Doug Mensch.
Yep.
Um, Mike Manley is doing the art. Like,
It's a good
okay,
team. It's a good
it's a
team.
really good
But you
team.
could tell they were just they were handed nothing by the editorial team. They weren't like, okay, what's the general direction that we're heading? It's like, no, just fucking tell some Azrael stories. Like, fine, well, I guess we'll fucking tell some Azrael
And
stories.
it's
Like,
almost like they want to make a villain for Azrael, but so a lot of the villains Azrael faces are reverted down to like the mob.
yeah. That's
And
all it is. A lot of my notes actually are also Azrael versus Mob.
it's
That's
like
like that's a lot of what it is. Um,
and you could make that work. Like
yeah.
you can make that work,
hmm But
but you also
so many of the scenes like feel very samey and don't do much. Um, yeah, I don't know. This is the first issue where that really becomes apparent, and we're only 5 issues in, so
yeah,
it's a shame.
like our inciting incident is this mob family get like at an Italian restaurant drinking their coffee gets gunned down and um a grenade is thrown in and explodes. And I think the idea is that like without Bruce Wayne, Gotham is returning to like pre-Batman crime families.
Which is weird because like I don't know. Wouldn't the advent of Azrael make mobsters more afraid to reconvene?
Yeah,
To reconvene, like it's just
I mean, like
it makes
there's
no
all this
sense.
talk of how like the mantle is his and he is going to make his mark on the city, but he kind of doesn't because we never like we don't really get to see the city
Yeah.
and through like
Um.
every people every day on the street.
Yeah.
We get
T
we get a
Tim makes a
small
tiny
yeah we
appearance.
get a small Tim appearance.
Yeah.
We get
Very
we
small, very small appearance. I do actually like the scene between Gordon and Batman in this, or Gordon and Azrael in this.
yes.
Um, you can see that just like Gordon is starting to have his doubts about him, and you can see like
But those doubts are going to be put on hold for a long time.
very
And
long time.
so okay, so our
Necros
big
has a very '90s design, doesn't he?
yeah he's a robot
Yeah.
and it's I I guess you're trying to do a man versus machine maybe
I
Maybe
doubt
they're
it.
trying to do like a RoboCop thing.
I doubt it.
I I'm trying throughout a lot of this, I was trying to see like, okay, what are they actually trying to say? Like, you're telling a story, you're trying to say something. And I
You'd
don't
hope so.
think I think this might just be cool imagery that our badass 90s tech suited Batman can fight.
Yeah, which is
Uh,
which is exemplified by the next issue's cover, Batman 502, which is another one I know I have in single issue. um, I don't know, probably because it had a cool cover.
it had a cool cover.
That's a very cool
Um,
cover.
yeah,
Um,
nothing happens in these issues
Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing.
and like we
Um,
don't. Here's the thing: is like we don't see Azrael fail. Like
no,
Mensch is
we never
almost
see him
trying.
struggle as a character.
Mensch is almost trying to play these issues like it's a struggle, but
No, like Azrael's got this fucking badass weapon filled to the teeth, what fucking armed to the teeth suit. Um, like he's fucking unstoppable. Like there were struggles back when he was wearing the regular Bruce Wayne suit, but no, not now. There's nothing here. Um,
and
the only really positive thing I really liked in this issue was there's a meeting between Gordon and the mayor like
yeah,
starts to like show like a real appreciation for Azrael as the new Batman.
yeah,
Um,
the corrupt mayor. The plot with that doesn't go anywhere really.
yeah,
Um,
but I do kind of like the implication that Bruce saving him in Nightfall inadvertently like sort of caused this like new wave of like just like the mayor loving Azrael, and like that wouldn't be happening if Bruce had let him go, and it's that moral struggle that Bruce always goes through, but it doesn't really get commented on, but I like that implication. It's
yeah,
kind of there.
it's an implication. Also, it doesn't help. Our villain Macross doesn't have a character. He has
Nope.
dialogue, but like we need a villain with character. Our
Yeah.
mobster villains are just I don't know who these people are.
Nope.
Um, they get killed. There's a nice scene near the end, like sort of near back half with Gordon and Sarah having discussing things, and again you see more of just the mayor being corrupt politician, which is good, but these are really two issues where very little actually happens.
And that's not going to be helped much by the next issue, Detective Comics 669,
Okay,
because the Cowboys are back.
all right, back to the
Back to
Cowboys.
the Cowboys.
So, at this point, my brain was thinking, are we trying to do Reign of the Superman, where each book has its own plot?
Oh no, because I think the Cowboys actually do finally disappear after this issue, right?
Yeah, yeah. But like, why are you here again?
But Jacob, they rob a train this time.
Yeah,
It's funny because it's like the westerns, and that's what the
well, because it's
Cowboys did.
oh, I mean, when they showed up, they made a joke about the Great Train Robbery. Like,
Yeah,
I get the joke, but um,
it's so just oh my god, nothing happens.
it's so
Ah,
surreal.
God.
So I also like okay. So one of my notes is Azrael tries to justify turning away Tim.
Mm,
However, that's become a kind of a holding pattern and then gets dropped after this because Tim doesn't substantially show up again until the end.
no,
There are a couple of random cameos with him and Huntress of all people, um,
yeah.
which I mean, cool, but interesting. Also, he keeps driving on the railroad tracks.
Yep, because he's got
Why?
his cool little train Batmobile now. It's great.
Like it's cool, but like Azrael, you are going to get yourself killed like this.
Well,
Um,
maybe that's for the best. Maybe this
yeah.
story can end sooner.
Also, like the Cowboys just aren't interesting villains.
No, not in the slightest.
I don't even remember if they get names.
I don't know.
Like,
Oh, I just flipped to a panel where one of them calls the other Tom. So
uh, uh
I don't know.
I don't know if it's a reference to something. I don't know.
I
Like
don't know.
the action sequences with the train Batmobile are cool.
Yeah.
They're fun.
Hey, there's a
Uh,
Joker tease at the end.
yeah, there's a Joker tease.
Hey, there we go. Something we could talk about.
Yeah. Except we won't actually get to that for a little bit because
Yeah.
Detective
My
670.
first note for the next issue actually is no Joker and a little sad face.
Yeah,
But yes, the Detective Comics 670. Um,
this one, okay, so this one's especially weird because so
Mr.
this we yeah,
We got Mr. Freeze here.
we are in mid 1994. Heart of Ice has aired. It's won the Emmy.
Hmm.
So the comics are going to reintroduce Mr. Freeze. Except um they don't.
Nope.
Like okay, so it's Christmas. I really like the Christmassy setting for the
Yeah.
rest of this.
Yeah, it's
Um
nice. What is it? Barry Kitson's on this issue, and there's some
yes.
really nice art here.
Um but yeah, the Christmas setting is nice. Um, I like the idea of of a cold case being reopened.
Hmm.
I like seeing the scenes with Bullock and Montoya. Like
Yeah,
those are
Montoya actually
fun.
gets some decent moments in this.
Yeah, what's been kind of a shame is that Montoya's been such a background player that like some of the writers don't necessarily portray her well because they
No.
don't give her enough spotlight. Like um, and it's very but like there's a cold case. And you know, we see, you know, Azrael stopping crimes. Um, but you know, one of the things they find is that a body that they find in the autopsy room ends up disappearing and leaving a bunch of ice behind, and it's Mr. Freeze. And they kind of play Mr. Freeze like a serial killer.
Yeah. Which I don't know. First of many occasions of people misunderstanding Heart of Ice.
Yeah, I mean, okay. He never gets like a free suit and he doesn't show up again in after this issue. Like
No.
this is just we are reintroducing Mr. Freeze probably to the post-crisis DC universe in general.
I think so, yeah. I think
Cuz
this
like
was his first appearance.
cuz who would have used him like
Probably
before
no
Heart of
one.
Ice happened?
Yeah.
Heart of Ice essentially created the character that we know
Unless
today.
someone was just a massive Adam West show fan.
I mean, it's possible. Um, I like the idea, but like he doesn't get to be like an intelligent character. You don't really recognize him as Mr. Freeze. At least
No, no, not at all. He's
I
just
didn't until they literally said, "This is Mr. Freeze. You should remember him after all the times he's nearly killed you."
Oh, it's great. We love it. I mean, we hate it, but we love it. Um, there's a nice little note that ends the issue with Montoya not trusting Azrael, but you know, what else is new?
What else is new? So
Um,
now we have a four-part story arc.
yes, this was kind of decent, but
This one's decent.
less than the sum of its parts, I'd say.
It's
Um,
it's it's the best when we're focusing on Selena.
so this is Catwoman number 6. Once again, Jim Balent is on the pencils here, and I really love his art. He's so good.
Yes, and Dick Giordano is on inking, and Joe Duffy is the writer of the Catwoman series,
Hmm.
um, which honestly makes a nice change to have a new writer.
Hmm.
I kind of like this idea of Catwoman as a protector of animals and endangered species,
I
especially
think
endangered cats.
I think it's something that also was probably inspired by the animated series.
Oh, probably,
Yeah.
probably.
Because
Uh,
yeah, we're only 6 issues into this. I wouldn't be surprised if her portrayal in the animated series is kind of what inspired a lot of this series, at least early on.
it's early on. Um, but like she's like we have Selena one because this is a Catwoman issue. It means we aren't focused on Azrael. Like we
Hmm.
have finally taken the focus off of Azrael for a brief
Well,
glimpse.
until like almost halfway through the issue, where we just randomly cut to Azrael just beating up some more kids. Like,
Yeah. So Selena's working with some environmental terrorists,
mhm,
and we're trying to basically, um, you know, we are trying to, basically have Selena almost as a hero to save some animals, from corporations who are wanting to burn down the forest, and
mhm,
it's nice. Asriel shows up in the issue just to remind us that he's here.
mhm.
Um,
And then by the end, we learn that he's been like watching Selena for some reason. Um, and
and
that's most of it, pretty much. I mean,
that's
I don't
most of
know.
it.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. So we find out, there's a toxin. Um, the toxin is called Zyklon C, which is, if you know about Zyklon B, that's a bit. Who? Let's not open that can of worms.
Okay. I don't know. I got kind of interested when you started talking about that, Mr. Chemistry nerd. So,
So that's the main poison used as a gas in its gaseous form in a certain historical
oh,
event.
okay.
Which, yeah,
So what would
so
this imply?
uh, a certain far right German Workers' Party. Um, it's a weird reference. I'm like, you could have chosen anything else. You
Yeah,
didn't have to bring up this imagery in a '90s issue of Catwoman.
but here we
Uh,
are.
yeah, and
Um, yeah.
we move
Moving
in then
on.
to Batman 503, and
Another
those.
one that I have actually, which I think also this, I want to talk about the cover of this one. I just love Azrael's gigantic cape drawn here.
Gigantic cape.
Look at
Is
that.
it?
Oh, it's
It's
beautiful.
Kelly Jones.
Kelly Jones. Of course, it's Kelly Jones. It's awesome.
Also, very muted colors, which is always nice.
Yeah.
And this time, we kind of see stuff from Azrael's perspective, and I like, in theory, the interactions between Azrael and Selena, because Azrael wouldn't know the history between Bruce and Selena. Like,
Yeah.
even though, like, we haven't really established that Bruce knows Selena's identity.
Mhm.
There's that connection there, because that connection has always been there.
Which is odd,
Uh,
actually, because like Azrael is like using the Bat computer to look into Catwoman later, and like there's nothing about her being Selena there,
yeah,
which
because
I
well,
find odd.
apparently the idea is based on here and then the stuff in Nightfall. At least the way I read it is Bruce doesn't know that
Yeah,
Catwoman is
and
Selena
that's so
Kyle.
weird to think about. Like, I don't know, I don't get that, but
It is.
whatever. Um, we get another scene between Azrael and Gordon in this issue. We get some more.
And Azrael is convinced that Catwoman stole the Zyklon C to, I guess, gas and murder the World Trade Summit or whatever that's coming to Gotham,
Yeah.
which, like, everyone points out would be really out of character for Catwoman. Like, and Azrael just doesn't want to believe it.
Mhm.
Um, like, this is weird because it's like, oh, she's going terrorist is
Yeah.
the idea,
Mhm.
and it, like, just sort of the fear of terror is weird. Um, we also get another scene of the mayor.
In this one, he's like waving around a knife for some reason.
Yeah, like, I think it's supposed to be a letter opener.
It's
Um,
so weird. But yeah, like it's drawn in like a threatening way, because he's like threatening Gordon in that scene.
because he's corrupt. Um, but we have Azrael trying to get up to speed on who Catwoman is, and
There's a
he's
fight
very
between them towards the end.
he's very disapproving that Bruce, like, seems to have gone soft when it comes to this woman, and it's like, yeah, they're clearly in love,
Yeah.
Azrael. Like,
But But Azrael doesn't understand that, Jacob. Come on.
Yeah, because he's got Saint Dumas in his head
Yep.
until
You
Saint
cannot
Dumas.
ignore the orders of Saint Dumbass. Um,
Um,
and then like I kind of like this because going straight into Batman 504. Speaking of Saint Dumbass, um, as Azrael is like leaving the scene, it's like he just sees Saint Dumbass like in the sky that starts speaking to him. Then
it's like, I am Saint Dumas here to guide your crusade. It's like, okay, let's just talk about the language of this being explicitly a crusade.
oh my god.
It's like, it's not, it's not a good thing. Like, it doesn't help that this is puts like it feels it feels like they chose Crusade because it sounds epic. And like I get it, you're not supposed to like Azrael, like that's the point, but also you have to have him do bad things and get to it quicker because there's so much middle stuff.
Yeah.
Like I think the sport party you could cut down to like two or three and
Yeah,
be
definitely.
very nice. Like
Because the last issue ended on like this chase that led to a dead end between Azrael and Catwoman, and then the next issue here we're going straight into another chase between the two of
another
them because
chase.
Catwoman is now stealing a boat or
Yeah,
something.
this time at the wharf or instead. And a lot of this obviously could be avoided. Like if they just talked to each other, they could have avoided this whole situation.
Hmm.
Which that's a trope that is very easy to fuck up, and they kind of fuck it up here.
Yeah.
Like, I do love that Selina's the only character with any sort of brain cell. Like she's the one working. It's like right, she has to save the animals and kind of save the people because Selina Kyle is not a terrorist. She's a cat burglar. Like she's a thief. She she's not a murderer.
Yeah.
Like I I don't know if there's ever been a time in comics where Selina Kyle's been portrayed as a murderer, but I
I don't
doubt it.
think so. I don't know. Maybe there's some weird Bob Kane shit back in the day. Who knows?
Um, but yeah, like there's some. What's nice is that a lot of this is dialogueless, and there's just a lot of action.
Hmm.
But a lot of this, but it also means a lot of this issue is action, and
Yeah,
you
and
just have
it's
like the
just
GCPD looking on.
once again just feeling like we're just repeating the same bits over and over again. There's a very similar looking fight between Azrael and Catwoman in a warehouse later on in the issue. It looks just like the fight in the last issue. um, and then eventually Catwoman gets caught by the police and Azrael gets away, and that's that.
And you even have Bullock at the end of the issue. Never would have believed it. The Catwoman turned terrorist. It's like, yeah, because it doesn't make any sense, Harvey.
Yeah. Which brings us to Catwoman number 7. Hey, Jim Balent art. Great stuff.
Yeah, because he was the main artist on the Catwoman book.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And he's a big
uh,
highlight here.
yeah, so
I love the way he does faces.
yes, and his backgrounds. He's very nice, like level of detail that aren't super detailed backgrounds.
Yeah.
Like it's a very nice balance.
Mhm.
Also, like we open the issue and Selena's just done with everyone's shit. It's just like you motherfuckers, you're all gonna die.
Yeah.
Um, and you know I I like the actual Catwoman issue plots where we actually deal with sort of the eco terrorist that she's working with, and you sort of see that background, see how one of them betrays them, um, as well as just an understanding of how Catwoman can get away from the situation. It's clever. She uses acrobatics. She uses trickery. They're nice. It's nice little bits, like nice
Mhm.
little things like this. Um,
I do like
that
the way that Selena gets away from the cops here with the shadow of the one statue.
yeah,
And
like
it literally tricks all the cops so she gets away. It's just funny. Um,
it's great. It's great, and we find out who betrayed them. But then we have Azrael showing up, of course, because friends, Azrael always has to show up.
mhm.
He has to continually be here from like in like every issue, and like that just
And again, he just has no other characters to bounce off of him.
And
So
he
like,
doesn't he's not like developing as a character.
no, there's no change here. There's nothing to latch onto, and it's
It's
I
just,
really,
oh look, Asriel's here again.
yeah.
Um we find we also, we have Selena using the bat signal. And I do love the scene because Selena just runs circles around Asriel. Like,
Hmm.
she realizes, like, she's the one character with a functioning brain and realizes you're not him.
Hmm.
You're not Batman. Like, I know Batman. You're not him. And they find this guy. They scare him. Um, and the chemicals are being poured in. Um, and we end on finding out um that like that the Zyklon was accidentally replaced with tear gas.
Hmm.
Um,
And of
so
course, Selena gets away in the end, as she always should.
she always should. So
Um,
the Geneva Conventions were technically still violated, just not ending in actual deaths.
yeah.
Um,
All right,
yeah.
let's talk about some good issues.
Yeah, well,
Detective
good issues
Comics.
that don't actually do the plot. We go to another character who is allowed to have brain cells, and it's the Joker of all people.
Yeah, Detective Comics 671. Beautiful cover. It's just Azrael in a monster movie, and he's so fitting there.
It
um,
works.
it's yep.
Okay.
um,
I love first thing. The
Perfect title
Joker's
page.
the Joker's alias as a director, Mr. Joseph F. Kerr,
It's so good.
which is just like, it's a terrible pun, and I love it. I think Dixon gets how to write the Joker,
Mhm.
like, because all of his lines are hilarious.
Oh yeah,
Um,
and Joker with the fucking like ponytail in this too. Like, I love it.
and the
He even has like the
sunglasses,
and the little DC badge he wears on his jacket.
which
It's
of
so
course
good.
I know DC Comics exists in the DC universe, which I just find hilarious. Also, like, I don't know, the Joker wanting to make the death of the Batman as a film,
Mhm.
just just works. He's going all out to like shoot test footage with a dwarf standing in for the Batman,
Mhm.
all to show to a group of producers, and the producers love it. It's like, we'll give you 10 million to go into pre-production, but you've got to lose the dwarf. Egads, I will not despoil my vision. Already my artistic integrity is assailed. The casting of little Lenny is at the very core of this film's soul, and a children's-sized costume was all I could get on short notice. So Lenny'll find other work.
Oh, it's so good. I adore it. Um,
And the Joker's plan to like stage crimes for Batman to investigate it's so Silver Age and it's so fun.
mhm.
The Joker doesn't have to be a super dark character all the time. You can
No.
have shit like this and make it be funny.
And it
Um,
totally works here.
because he's still a threat. Like he has this woman be attacked by movie monsters, like a Frankenstein monster, a Dracula, and a Wolfman, um, clearly inspired by the Universal monster movies.
Mhm.
And the
And Azrael
victim,
saves her from these horror movie monsters, um and Joker is like filming him the whole time with this stagehand next to him. um oh, it's great.
and you can see the Joker being like, wait, that's not him. There's no Robin. What's going on?
Mhm.
Um, and Azrael takes this woman back to, I guess, her apartment, and we eventually learn that like this woman was hired by the Joker
Mhm.
to be attacked. We 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 see, okay, we see advanced reviews for this film.
Yes.
in a cameo from Siskel and Ebert.
Yes. It's
Like,
so good. It's so fucking good.
so the Joker's gonna go into production, and he also calls people baby a lot, like super accented, and it works.
Yeah.
This is hilarious, and
Uh,
Asriel really doesn't understand how to work in a situation like this.
mhm.
Um,
uh, but then the issue does get stopped dead for like 2 pages when Saint Dumas talks to
it's
Azrael.
like, yep, we already know this. Moving
Yes, it's
on.
literally just filling up pages with shit we already know.
But we're
Um,
building to like the Joker shooting, Asriel finding the film reels, finding things, going back to this woman's college dorm, and we find her room, and we find Robin being flung to his death.
yes,
Um,
which brings us to Detective Comics 672. Great cover. Um, yeah, just love that one. Robin falling down there, and Azrael after him.
I'm kind of
Um,
mixed because it's a bait and switch.
I don't really care.
Like, I get it. I get
It's meant
why.
to sell copies. That's all it is.
Yeah,
Um,
but here's the thing. Here's the thing. At this point, I was missing Tim.
yeah, yeah,
Like
oh yeah,
I'm like, we're really missing Tim. Like, ooh, Jean Paul may have to save Tim. Like, that could be interesting. Where could this lead? And it's like, oh, it's not Tim.
the
It's not Tim.
same girl from earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah. The Joker yells, "Cut!" He has a no Batman symbol on his cap.
It's
Um. Like the artists are clearly having fun with this.
oh yeah, yeah. It's just a really fun Joker design. This director look.
He strong arms the producers into giving him more money by threatening to kill his co-stars.
hmm
Um, he
We get
also has
another
an
scene
account
of
in the Bahamas.
Jean Paul looking into Batman villains on the Bat computer. Jean Paul is wearing these like goofy little glasses in this scene, which I
Yeah,
think is
because
really
like
funny.
it's so weird because Jean Paul Valley was introduced as like upstanding graduate student who could also fight, who also had the secret programming to fight crime,
Yeah.
and now he is evil megalomaniacal Asriel. Like
Yeah.
it's such a
Um,
weird shift.
yeah. I do love the poster then that Joker has for the death of Batman. You'll believe a Batman can die. I'll give it 4 stars. Don't hit me again. Wham TV. A towering cinema achievement. I'd say that even if I didn't have a blowtorch held to my feet. I have to say,
I
it's the finest film of the year to date, or the Joker will kill my family. You've got to see this movie. My life depends on it. It's so good. I
The
love it.
Joker presents a Paragon Pictures production of The Death of Batman starring The Joker, Batman. Of course, he gives himself top billing as he should.
Yes.
Um, and a cast of 1,000 killers, screenplay by The Joker, and music by The Joker, based on a psychotic obsession by The Joker.
Directed by
Like,
the Joker, a Joker production. Like it's so good. I adore
suitable for
it.
everyone except Batman. Like, like
I love it.
there's fun with it. You can see why these issues are such a respite.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. You really need it.
you really need it,
I
and
mean,
it's the only.
there's still like the typical Night Quest issues in here, but like they are not as prevalent because we're actually telling a fun story with the Joker here. Um,
Things are actually happening,
hmm
and some plot. And I will say this: the second and third issue does kind of drag a little bit.
hmm
Once Azrael actually gets into the picture, because
He really is the worst thing about this whole thing, isn't he?
yeah. Um, like I love that the Joker sets up a machine gun to kill the cops, and has a giant Godzilla foot slam down, has just pelts Azrael with pies. I
It's
think they're just
beautiful.
regular cream pies. I don't think they're like
Probably.
like it, the Joker's allowed to be funny.
Yeah, as
Um,
he should be. And oh god, I forgot. I love the last page of this. Just the way the Joker's drawn there.
we have to we send up Casablanca of all
Yeah,
the gin joints in all the world. You walk into mine.
and the way he's drawn there, it's beautiful. We go into Detective Comics 673, which is probably the weakest of the this three-parter.
Yeah.
But it's still pretty solid. Yeah, I don't know, I like it. I like some of the layouts in this one, especially this spread on pages 2 and 3.
Yeah. I mean, it's clear that Graham Nolan is having fun with like playing up classic films and putting in like little film references here and there. Um, but this is the issue with the most Asriel.
Yep.
So,
So what what else is gonna happen?
like, the Joker being a drama queen, like, is great. Like, I love how it's like, God, I hate these last minute rewrites. I'll just save this scene for the in the editing room. It'll still be a cinema masterpiece, but what's this? Something's not right. Something I can't put my finger on. Something's different. The way he moves, the ferocity, the lack of grace, the sheer brutality. It's not him. And like you get this idea of like, well, I'm done. It's not Batman. Pack it up, boys. We're
yep.
going home.
It's the most like Mark Hamill moment for the Joker in this whole thing. I love it.
Yeah. Yet, like, I don't think the man who killed Batman would have aired yet. Like,
Probably not,
um,
but it's still great to see. I love
it's just
it.
a great understanding of who the Joker is, right? Because
Uh-huh.
like
Oh yeah.
he's more annoyed
Yeah.
like I was ruined by an imposter, and then Siskel and Ebert give him two thumbs down, so he
Hmm.
shoots them both.
There's then a musical number on a giant piano. um
How this should have been all of Knightquest, making a super edgy character have to deal with Silver Age shenanigans.
yes, yes, that'd be great, wouldn't it? Like
Yeah.
I don't know. I I think like Azrael versus like a Silver Age Two-Face would have been really funny.
So that would have been hilarious. Or
Yeah.
you know what? You revived Mr. Freeze for this? You know who they could have
Hmm.
revived? Killer Moth.
Oh, yes, yes. Or just continue the ventriloquist plotline
Yeah,
from
yeah, that's
Nightfall.
right. We've stopped the ventriloquist. He isn't
It
in
just
this.
totally ended. Like I don't know. I would love to see more of that. I think it'd be funny, but whatever. 'Cause I think I'm now picturing the scene where Azrael rips Scarface off of Wesker's hand and just starts beating the shit out of the puppet.
Yeah, like
I don't know. I just want Azrael to be made a fool of. That doesn't happen often enough here.
I mean, that's kind of the point is that he's a shit Batman, so it would work. Like
Yeah.
he's a character not created to deal with this sort of Silver Age madness,
Hmm.
and the best thing they can do is put him into Silver Age madness.
Yeah. Moving on to Shadow of the Bat number 24.
Yes.
Um,
Uh,
this is the only Shadow of the Bat issue I didn't really love. Actually, no, sorry. There were
I
two.
dislike the message of this story.
Yeah,
I
sorry. There
really
were two. There
do.
were two of them actually, but this is the first of those two.
I think I will say I think Grant is at least trying to paint the message as Asriel being in the wrong.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think every writer is hopefully
Is
writing
hopefully writing it.
from the perspective that Azrael's not a good person. Um,
However, this tackles immigration,
mhm,
and it doesn't do it particularly well.
yeah.
Um,
There is a pretty funny bit in this where Azrael starts speaking perfect Spanish, and his inner monologue is like, "Oh my God, I can speak Spanish."
yes, because it's the idea that the system has given him all this hidden knowledge that'll just pop up,
Yeah.
which could be an interesting idea, but like none of the writers do anything with it.
Hmm.
Like Grant is clearly coming the closest with being like he can speak Spanish.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, this is an issue uh, of you know an immigrant who is undocumented and is being threatened by some street level crime.
Hmm.
Yeah, we should also mention we won't really see another supervillain until I think Shadow of the Bat 26. I think.
Uh, I can't even. Oh yeah. Well, you get. See, it's not even like actual Clayface though in that.
I mean, it is. It's one of the clay faces.
Yeah. But like, I don't know. I don't think it's like. Yeah. I don't
It's
know.
at least a supervillain who
It's about the closest you'll get.
who I actually felt something for, but um, yeah. Well, oh wait, and then I just realized what's coming next after this on
Hmm.
because of.
Yep.
Oh boy, we're gonna have to bring that up. Okay. Yeah. So this, Azriel speaks perfect Spanish, beats these muggers, but like, okay.
I'm perfectly fine skipping over pretty much the rest of this issue.
Yeah, the thing is you think, oh, he's gonna do a good deed by saving this woman's baby, and that's sweet, but it heavily implies he turns her in to be deported at the end.
Yeah.
And that's shitty. It's shitty.
Hmm.
I honestly expected better from Alan Grant. Like,
Yeah.
um, and now we start the main plot, and we
The
introduce the
main
main villain
plot.
of Knightquest. Mind you,
Uh,
we are how many? 1,
this
2, 3,
is, let's
4,
see,
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I've tabbed my
that
issues.
was 16
12,
issues.
13.
Yeah, we're over halfway now.
Yeah, this is issue 16, and we're just now introducing the main villain.
This is Batman 505.
And because at this point, a certain event was happening at DC Comics in the annuals. Well, look, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the return of Bloodlines. This,
Part of me wants to be really happy that we're doing this, but also this is not nearly as fun
it
as all
isn't,
the
it isn't.
Bloodlines issues back in Death and Return of Superman.
Here's the thing. Bloodlines was just so edgy, right? Like it was so edgy 90s,
Hmm.
but it was at least a lot of it was like paralleled with interesting characters like Connor Kent and Steel, even the Eradicator and Cyborg Superman, who, yeah, Cyborg Superman's kind of edgy 90s, but less so. There's an actual character there and
Hmm.
motivation and things. This is
Yeah.
just, we're bringing in some of the Bloodlines heroes
Yep.
to team up with
And
Azrael. Mind you, I checked into the event. Bruce did get one annual where it was Bruce's Batman, with
hey, that's
one
nice.
hero. The other three, because the annuals were for Batman, Detective Comics, Shadow of the Bat, and Legends of the Dark Knight. Like all four got Bloodlines tie-ins. Um, Three of them were with Azrael.
Hmm.
I am. I want to see the Bloodlines omnibus released even more now, just to see how terrible they were. Like,
Yeah.
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 So this, okay, fitting a Bloodline sort of follow up. This is called Bloodkin,
Hmm.
and we open on just
There's,
a gruesome, edgy page of
yeah.
a family being slaughtered. So
Well, I mean, to be fair, the family has already been slaughtered.
yeah, but we see the aftermath, and it's bloody. We get
Hmm.
a full 3 pages of Saint Dumas.
Oh my god, I'm so sick of Saint Dumbass. I can't. I can't.
No, yeah, you have to. So okay, so our villain is Abattoir. I don't know what it is with this storyline and these French sounding names.
I don't know. I don't know anything. Oh my god. I think this is breaking me. This
Are
is
we gonna
it.
have an Attack of the Cyberman commentary
Oh my
flashback?
god. I can't fucking do this, dude. This is so fucking boring.
Yeah, well, we're gonna power through
Oh my
it.
god.
Um,
Okay, we don't
so
have that much more to go realistically.
yeah, and hey, some of the issues that we have left are good. And so Abattoir is a butcher who's killing his family,
Hmm.
right? And then and like cool. That gets us through like the first half of the issue.
Hmm.
And then we get a charity dinner, and we get
Yep.
a cameo from Leslie Tompkins,
Yeah, that's nice to see.
who is fun. We find out, Bruce Wayne from the Wayne Foundation couldn't be here tonight, which is a shame. Like, but we brought in Mr. Graham Etchison. Etchison being, Abattoir's real name, so this is a victim, and
Hmm.
so we sort of do some okay parallels with Azrael chasing. But instead of going after Graham, Abattoir becomes a bus driver,
Hmm.
kills a bus driver,
And
and
and Azrael fights him, and the bus driver falls off a cliff,
and
and
and and we
that's
think, you know what? I thought at this point, like, oh, this is this is it. We will never see this character again.
you think so.
You'd think so. So,
You know what I
okay.
think you know what I think the difference is between you and me reading this, Jacob? I
Yeah.
think so like you're like annoyed by this as about as much as I am. But I think this is this is my second time reading it. I've read this entire thing twice,
This is true.
and
I've
it's
only experienced it once.
oh my god, this is killing me. I can't.
Yeah, yeah. Like, well, again, a lot of the problem is there isn't a whole lot of interesting shit to say.
Yeah.
It's
So I
this is
guess
going to be probably our shortest Nightfall saga episode.
yeah,
Just
I think it'll
because
probably be under 2 hours if I were to guess.
very possibly because
We're an hour 20 in right now, so who
so
knows?
yeah. So we're
Uh,
at Shadow of the Bat 25.
this is the other
Shadow
Alan
of the Bat.
Grant one that I did not like.
Well, you want to know why that is? You want to know why that is? You want to know why that is?
Tell me why that is.
Because it's a fucking Bloodlines tie-in.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I do think the Corrosive Man has a really cool design, though.
it's a cool design, a really cool
Yeah.
design. It's very green. It's like acid.
Hmm.
Um, but
But then there's Joe
Joe
Public.
Public,
Joe Public.
who's a cop, like he's
Yep.
a cop.
That's all he is. That's the whole gimmick. He's just a
I,
cop.
and like okay, I don't know who created Joe Public. Um,
I can't. Oh my
Garth
god.
Ennis, because Garth Ennis created a Bloodlines character, um, called Hitman.
Yeah, but
And
didn't we read with Hitman?
yeah, I think so. I think he cameoed at one point in something.
Yeah,
Um,
I thought we've had
yes,
Hitman before,
yeah. So I'm
or maybe
looking
I'm just
up.
thinking of my own Garth Ennis reading. I don't
Oh,
know.
you know what? Joe Public is a character created by Alan Grant.
Oh, that hurts. Is this his
That
first appearance?
this is his second appearance.
Mm.
His first appearance was in the Shadow of the Bat Annual #1,
Oh
which
God.
this is a direct follow up to
Mm.
because um okay, so he like again we get reference to the Bloodlines aliens here. Like they get name
Hmm.
dropped.
Which are the actually like kind of cool and interesting thing about Bloodlines.
Yeah. So the Corrosive Man is a villain. We we imply like so Joe Public has also been working with Star Labs.
Hmm.
He's not an interesting character. He's not great.
No,
I think he's almost maybe he's supposed to be like a Captain America parody.
maybe
I
Alan Grant is trying to say something more than this is a cop.
yeah, I mean he looks like a cop.
He's yeah. That's the whole gimmick. He's
But
just a cop
it doesn't help that he's paired with Azrael, who like
who's just a religious cop. Um,
Joey. That's basically just a
that's just a
cop.
cop. Yeah, you're right. It's just a
Like
cop. um.
we're coming out with so many zingers.
Oh fuck. Can we just go on to the next one?
Yeah. So the Corrosive Man is a man of acid who, you know what? I'm gonna say it, deserves some fucking sympathy. Like this, I don't know. He might be a murderer, but like he's made of acid. Somebody
Oh my
show some
god.
sympathy. Somebody call in Superman. Like do something. Do something. Because Superman's alive at this point. Um, and so he stops, and Joe Public kind of is like, "Oh, I actually have feelings about being a hero." Um, and he also has absorption powers, so he absorbs the Corrosive Man's powers, and then feels sympathy because the Corrosive Man is constantly in pain, which is a fascinating fucking idea for a character, but
You
nothing's
know,
done
I
with
read
it.
this thing twice, and I forgot until you mentioned it there that Joe Public actually had powers.
Yeah, he has powers. It's absorby powers. Um,
Fuck.
yeah,
Oh my god.
it's a thing.
Moving on. Batman 506.
506,
And
which
the first sin that Batman 506 makes is a Kelly Jones cover I don't love.
yeah, it's kind of bland.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but also this is another Bloodlines follow-up.
Yep.
Um, so This issue is called Malevolent Maniacs,
Mm-hmm.
spelled Maniaxe, because it's the 90s, and spelling things wrong is just a thing that the
It was
90s
just the
did.
thing to do. It was the thing to do.
Um,
Oh God.
so, wait, you know what? Mike Manley and Joe Rubenstein are on the art, and I like their art. It's good art.
Yeah.
So we have we have a guy trying to put a contract to um on to Abattoir,
Mm-hmm.
which like that could be interesting, but we don't actually follow up. The contract is issued, um, and then we see we okay. So we have okay. How do I explain? I'm struggling to find the words, Joey.
Let me tell you, Jacob. Jacob, I'm not going to be able to help you much.
We have
I
a
have,
film noir parody
Jacob.
with some dialogue of 3 nights later, a teetotaler addicted to diet soda makes the rounds of the hardest drinking dives in town. His name is Kelvin Mao.
Okay, so this is where my one of my two notes comes from, which is I just quoted the line, "I didn't say I was easy. I'm a Republican," which
This is ballistic.
this is ballistic, and
Again, not the Garth Ennis creation.
no,
Which, you know what? I have reservations about reading Ennis, but I feel like Ennis might be a bit more competent than whatever's going for in these.
I don't
Um,
know what you think Ennis is, but it's nothing close to this.
I'm afraid of Ennis's dark and edgy side. Okay, that
Okay,
scares
well,
me.
as you should be. Ennis is a dark and edgy writer, but also really fun. Like,
You say that, but I don't know. Um, we get oh God, we get these goons
mhm.
who one of them has a bullseye on his chest and a thing, and it's the designs are weird.
And pretty bland and just.
They're mercenaries, I guess. Um,
Oh, that's right. I forgot. We get a scene with Bruce Wayne in
yeah,
this.
we get a tiny scene
It's two
with
panels. It
Bruce.
is exactly 2 panels long.
I noted this. I also noted there's a Tim cameo.
Yep.
There's a Tim
Oh
cameo,
my
you
God, these characters
guys.
are doing something. Like, it's just they're not just waiting while Azrael just does the same thing over and over again.
But yeah,
Oh yeah,
and
so my only other note on this is I just drew, you know, that emoji with the eyes, like with the rolling eyes and the disappointed expression.
yeah,
I just drew that. That's
yeah.
it.
So like, so Ballistic meets Azrael,
Hmm.
and that's how we end the issue. And Ballistic has such a '90s design.
No, it's actually a terrible design,
So that leads into Batman 507, which is
which
called
also has a Kelly Jones cover I don't love. It's a
yes.
little better than the last one, but
Jim Ballant is on art for the interiors on this issue. That's
hey,
that's
that's nice.
that's
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 nice to
marginally
see.
nice.
Yeah. You
Look,
know what? I
I
think Jim Ballant draws the best Azrael suit.
he probably does. I mean, we've said it before. The suit was originally designed by Joe Quesada.
Hmm.
Um, so that works. It works. This is another nothing issue.
Yeah.
It's more Bloodlines tie-ins. I feel like I feel bad for our listeners.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like this is not gonna make a fun to listen to episode unless you just like hearing me go insane. Like I just
Yeah, like you have you going insane. Well, I'm here trying to like keep my notes in order and at least say things that I want to say. But we're in the stretch where there are issues where I have very few notes.
yeah, there's
Um,
just not much to say here. Like, okay, yeah,
there's
I get
almost a
it.
Three
Bloodlines
Stooges act
tie.
with the mercenaries. There's a casino called the Queen of Denial,
Mhm.
which is fun.
Which, yeah, sure.
Jim Ballant gets to draw showgirls. There is
Mhm.
a one panel cameo from Tim Drake and Huntress.
Just I can't. I
Here's the
fucking
thing.
can't. Oh
it's
my
one of those
God.
things, right? Where like these tiny little bits tell you that like
These
you need
characters are
something
here.
more.
That's all they're saying. They're not even saying anything interesting. It's just, oh well, the characters still exist. Don't forget that. And it's just,
It honestly, it feels. I wonder if these like Bloodlines tie-ins were mandated by someone, so it was like, well,
oh, most definitely, most definitely.
like you do not need them. Ballistic uses guns. Here's the problem, right? Is that it's clearly a character like Ballistic is like meant to parallel Bruce's aversion to guns, but Azrael has no such aversion to guns. He has been using guns this entire time. They are just Batman themed guns. They're basically guns with a Batman sticker on them and wrist mounted. Like,
Yeah,
like this is Frank Miller eat your heart out.
yeah.
Um, in places. And we get some nicely drawn action, more mobsters. And we find Henry Etchison, who is one of the Etchisons that is clearly there. Um, and we end the issue with this idea that Abattoir is already dead, except he's not
Yes.
actually dead, because he's the main villain of Knightquest technically,
Hmm.
and that's where it ends. And now we get two back-to-back Shout of the Bad issues.
Yeah,
Uh,
and these are pretty decent.
they're decent.
Yeah, yeah.
Mainly because you actually get some interesting characters for Azrael to play off of.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say it's
My
like
I do have one big complaint with these two is that for some reason Alan Grant's usually shit. Alan Grant's usually way better than with this, but I found these issues very wordy for some reason.
yeah. I mean, it feels like because I looked into who these characters are, and these are specific characters from like a Marv Wolfman story, like pre, like I think like set immediately after Lonely Place of Dying, like sort of in that interim.
Mm,
Like
okay.
like Tim hasn't quite become Robin yet. Um so like it's just Batman on his own while Tim is training to become Robin. Like so it's a thing where like it was like all four Clay Faces, I guess, like had a team up,
Hmm.
which sounds like an awesome story. Much rather be reading that than Night Quest at this point.
Yep.
Um because it's Marv Wolfman. Um, Literally at this point, the only thing getting me through is like I know that Dick Grayson has to show up at some point. He has to show up at some point. Tim, you had I know the last issue of this sequence is a Robin issue, so Tim
Hmm.
Drake is going to show up in some large capacity.
Yep.
Um, but yes, so Shadow the Bat. This is Creatures of Clay. Brett Blevins is on art. It's very wordy.
Hmm.
We're following up the kids that Azrael saved from the bus,
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
who all clearly need therapy.
Yes.
Um, I don't know if they had an idea for what they were going to do with these kids because they really don't. We do have, the GCPD actually trying to protect Abattoir's relatives. Um, and you have Azrael once again doing street crime when he is attacked by a clay gargoyle,
Hmm.
which is honestly great inciting incident, very fun, some
Yeah.
great action. We do get some. We can figure out that this is Lady Clayface, who vanished months ago, despite the fact that Azrael shouldn't necessarily know that, because he never faced her.
Yep. That makes no sense. I mean, like here's the thing. Like you could just say, oh yeah, Ezra like looked it up in his own time, on his own time, but like I don't know. If he had to look up big villains like Joker and Catwoman, like I really doubt he knew about Lady Clayface.
And Preston Payne, the like, who's what Clayface 3,
I think
three,
so. Yeah.
three,
I want to say three. Yeah.
3. Cool design. Very. I like that. Like they've kind of given each of the clay faces something a bit different. Like,
Mhm.
like that's cool. Cool design. I wouldn't be surprised if Wolfman had something to do with that design.
Mm.
Um, and this is like a love story where Preston Payne Clayface is injured and Lady Clayface is trying to save him.
Mhm.
And it's honestly their relationship is sweet. Like
Yeah, it's
it,
nice.
it's nice. Honestly, what I else said, this would have way more of an impact on the story if it wasn't Azrael.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
If Bruce dealt with the situation, like you could see like I don't know. There's a lot more potential here,
Yeah, like
but again, it's Azrael, and Azrael has gone through no development as a character, so
he hasn't changed.
yeah.
Remember, this is in the Shadow of the Bad issue before last. He gave
Mhm.
up an undocumented immigrant to the police
Yes,
who wasn't doing any sort of crime. She was just trying to find her child.
yes,
Um, and Preston Payne, like, again, abducts one of the Etchisons. Azrael's attacked, and that's where the issue ends. It's interesting, it's fun, but you're lacking the impact.
yeah.
You need Bruce. I think Shadow About 27 comes out a little bit better.
See, I
Um,
actually found I like 26 a little bit more. I think I felt 27 felt a little bit samey, that we were rehashing a couple things from last issue.
that's possible. I do like that, Clay, they have a child, and
Mhm.
I like the theme of trying to get like save their children. Um, but Abattoir's back, and he's like looking at this child, looking after this child.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, it's sweet. Like the flashbacks to Preston Payne and Lady Clayface sort of like bonding over the child. This child is called Cassius Clay. Cute name. Like it's kind of an aw. This is cute. I think Cassius Clay becomes a villain at some point because Clayface, but
Mhm.
still, like it's sweet. It's nice to see almost a semi-reformed villains trying to just live their lives. But then Azrael's there. Um, and you could do something really, really interesting with Azrael wanting to save a child, right?
Yeah.
Like,
But
but
Azrael clearly just would not care,
he
and does
doesn't
not
care.
care. Does not care. Um,
Like,
yeah.
there's a ransom note. Um, they end up, finding, we end up finding the baby, and Azrael only makes the situation worse.
Mhm.
Like, he doesn't save it. The baby grows wings so it can
Clay
fly.
wings, which I thought was a pretty funny moment.
It's a funny image, but it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's kind of sweet that the kid can save itself when you have the terribleness that is Azrael.
Mhm.
And he
Um,
catches the baby and gives it back to his parents. Um,
and
and
Abertoir has gotten away, of course. Um,
and has captured uh Graham Etchison, the cousin that he's been after, and he's sort of in this. Um, so in the Princess Bride, the
I know,
the
yes, I
scene
know exactly
where
what scene
Wesley
you're
comes
talking
back
about.
to life.
Yep.
Yeah, that scene, but it's a death trap.
Yes.
Like, like
My
it's
God, that last panel is so fucked up.
yeah.
Jesus.
Just
Um,
like we're doing family bond now. Interestingly, we did have a slight respite that isn't included in your collection of a showcase issue featuring the Penguin.
that sounds nice.
It's actually really nice because Oswald Cobblepot is like, you idiots realize that it's clearly not Batman, right? Like
Yeah.
every villain is allowed to be intelligent, more intelligent than Jim Gordon, which is a damn shame.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Um, so that moves us into
Uh,
Detective. Oh God, we're
yes.
starting this plot.
Detective
Fuck.
674.
Fuck. I hate this plot.
Here we
I hate
go.
this plot.
These are these are villains Gunhawk and Gun Bunny.
You know
Um,
what? It feels. I can see where people might think this is meant to be a satire with names like Gun Hawk and Gun Bunny.
yeah, yeah, but again, these are the Dixon issues,
Yeah.
so
So I don't think it's satire. I think Dixon is just writing like that.
yeah.
Um. Okay. This is what 674.
Yeah,
So
674.
my primary note on this one is what the fuck is this plot?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
it's we get a
at
fair bit of
least we
bullet
get
content in
Azrael
this
being a
though.
detective.
Yeah, and you gets to interact with Bullock a fair bit here.
Yeah, I like
So that's
that.
nice. Yeah,
Um,
but that's about the only thing I
also,
really like here.
yeah. So
Um,
Gunhawk and Gun Buddy are
a couple and Gunhawk is like this dude bro that like I don't know. That's
they're just
about all I
the
can tell you about them.
extreme guns are cool. Look, look,
Yeah.
okay, Gunhawk, tiny penis. He's compensating for quite a bit there.
Yes, absolutely.
Um, like, like the, a lot of these later issues just kind of devolve into guns firing, and like you try to wrap your head around it,
Hmm.
but you can't. Because like there's nothing to wrap your head around, especially since this issue's a Chuck Dixon issue, um, and like so the Bullock Azrael interactions are fun.
Hmm.
Like
Ezra does some like researching into like who Gunhawk is, and
we
um,
see their layer, and my
it's
God,
it's
even
it's
out of the
exactly what you
costume,
think it would be.
yeah, like it, a better writer would make this would be this have this seeping with irony, but I think Dixon's just horny for guns.
Yeah, yeah. And then
Like,
there's this later scene like towards the end where they like shoot up it's the welcome to the 94 Soldier for Hire World Expo.
yeah, like they just start shooting.
Yep.
They also don't have any characterization.
No, no. Like I said, like
Like
the only thing I can tell you is like Gunhawk's a dude, bro, and
a dude
that's
bro with big muscles,
yeah.
and Gun Bunny.
And Gun Bunny has no personality.
Well,
Like
she's eye candy. She's something
yeah.
for the dads.
But also like even that doesn't entirely work because their costumes like don't reflect what they're trying to be as characters at all.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. So
Except for the bandana that Gunhawk wears, I guess.
yeah, because it's an American flag bandana, and yeah, there's no shred of irony. We end in a gunfight, and there's just destruction, and you just see, oh look, Azrael's, I guess, being pushed to a brink, but not really.
Yeah. All right.
So Batman
That
508,
yeah,
which
this was
I said
actually this one I actually kind of enjoyed, I think.
this at least my first note was this at least has Tim Drake. Like,
Yeah, yeah, there's that and a fair bit of him actually. But we follow up on
yes,
the abattoir thing back from Shadow. Um he still has fucking what's
Graham, his
Graham,
cousin
that's his name.
Graham.
That's a fucking name.
And the idea is they're doing the Giles Corey death of more weight, and they're gonna be he's pressing him till dead.
Hmm.
And he doesn't know, Azrael doesn't know where it is. But we do have Tim back in the Batcave,
Yep.
at the Bat computer, which is very good. You sort of see, sort of just like the targets that have been destroyed. All the glass cases are still destroyed. Um, and uh, I don't know. Tim being here just is like, oh, good,
Hmm.
we have a character who actually has some sort of agency and can develop and
Yeah.
make plot things happen.
And Tim actually does like get involved in the fighting of abattoir,
He does
which I think.
detective work because Tim is very intelligent.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, Azrael's kind of just running like a chicken with his head cut off. He gets
Yep.
shot in the head, and you see like a bullet hole into the costume, which doesn't do anything.
Hmm.
He eventually finds Abattoir, and it's like, oh, I need vengeance. And Tim's like, oh well, Jean Paul figured it out first. He's made contact, but you
And
know,
then yeah, and then there's like this bit where abattoir is like hanging above. What is he hanging above? What is this a pit of?
um, molten metal because we're in an iron foundry.
That's
Like,
right. And as like Abattoir is hanging there, like Azrael is haunted by visions of Saint Dumbass, and Tim comes in and stops Jean Paul from losing his mind, and well, he yeah, that and then what is it? Because Graham then dies. Yeah, Graham dies. That
Graham
a
dies,
pretty horrible death.
and then
Uh,
Abattoir also dies. Like,
yes, and
he falls,
that's the end of that.
and that's like that's a great ending.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's a great ending, and like,
It's a little
uh,
abrupt, but I think
it's
it
abrupt.
works.
At this point now, Jean Paul Valley's allowed to actually have a character because he's now murdered somebody.
Hmm.
Like, and that's kind of fascinating to me because he hasn't had a character through this entire time. Like, he's been in this holding pattern, but now it's like, okay, we're wrapping things up. Like,
We are in
like,
the last three issues now. One
so
of which
this,
is not good, but the other two,
I'm guessing
like
you mean
detective.
675 is the
Yeah,
not good one.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's quite fascinating because I'm like, I have plenty of notes on Shadow the Bat 28 and on
Yeah,
Robin number 7,
and I
but
love the cover of Shadow the Bat 28.
God, it's heartbreaking. And
Gorgeous.
okay, yeah, this is, as the cover indicates, Commissioner Gordon, the Long Dark Knight. This
Yes.
is Alan Grant, perhaps at his best,
Mhm.
doing a very focused character study, um,
Of
while
Jim. Yeah,
of
and
Jim Gordon, with this idea that Gotham is falling apart without Bruce Wayne.
mhm.
Um,
We see Azrael reflecting a lot on Avatar's death. You see
and the fact
Gordon.
that like basically every villain except Joker, I think that's supposed to be Joker, in the upper right, is basically accounted for. Like
Mhm.
there's, it's like, oh well, there's, I'm, my righteous crusade has to still go on because there's always another enemy to fight, but like the city can't. Like it's like you can't, one man can't defeat crime.
Yeah.
Like Batman can make it better and make it easier, but he can't defeat all of crime.
Yeah.
Um, which is kind of the point of this issue. Like you see, and I love like sort of Jim's first appearance where it's like, right, I want every unit on it top priority. I want Graham Etchison found. And
And
just
they
sort of
find him,
the nightmare
and
happens.
yeah,
Like
he is dead. Batman has failed, and Gordon is very aware of this.
Jean-Paul
And
Valley is being haunted by the fact that he killed a man, because
mhm.
this is the first time where it feels like Jean-Paul Valley the person has actually shown up for
Yeah.
like since since Nightfall.
Mhm.
Like Bullock and Montoya are on the case. Sarah's trying to comfort her husband. I love the way they find Ashison. Like the way
Mhm.
that is drawn is
Oh, it's so
striking.
good. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Um,
Brett Blevins does the art
yeah,
on this
Bloods
issue.
does a great job on this issue. It all leads to this great scene about a little over halfway through the issue, where Azrael and Gordon come face to face, and Gordon is just so done with this guy.
Yeah.
It's a great scene, and Gordon in his rage like goes to like punch Azrael, and almost falls off the building, and Azrael like stops him from falling. Um,
And Azrael just has this like almost fascist monologue of, um, you know, it's like, on the contrary, Commissioner, human life means everything to me. Decent human life, which already as a concept terrifying. Like human life is
yeah.
human life.
Mhm.
If what you say was true, Commissioner, I'd let you fall to your death right now. Unless one of us changes his attitude, the friction between us can only grow. Understand this. I am the Batman. I will always be the Batman, and I will cleanse the city my way.
It's moments like that I gotta ask, what kind of voice are you envisioning for Azrael as Batman?
I'm envisioning something nowhere near as deep as Bruce's voice.
Mm.
Something slightly higher pitch,
I think
but
definitely something
equally,
modulated.
yeah. Oh, it's got to be modulated. There is definitely a voice modulator under there.
Mm.
But like very, very direct and forceful. And it's also very different from Jean Paul Valley outside of the system and the Saint Dumas stuff.
Yeah.
Like Jean Paul Valley is a person I imagine as almost normal person who's trying his best, whereas this is human as a monster.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, he is a monster. It's
like
great.
Gordon draws his
Uh
fucking gun and is ready to shoot.
mhm. Azrael
Um,
leaves and Gordon then smashes the bat signal and it's such a good moment. I love that.
Azrael even says, "Don't use the signal again unless it's important. You know what happened to the boy who cried wolf."
Oh God.
So like the bat signal, which has just been repaired from Nightfall, basically, is
Hmm.
shattered, and we see just mass hysteria, violence
Yeah,
on the
we spend the
streets.
rest of the issue of like just Azrael just beating on the criminals of Gotham, and it feels especially brutal because of the events that precede it, and we're actually using storytelling to drive to drive the brutalness of Azrael as a character, and to show like how that has changed him. Um, so I don't know.
I love the closing monologue when it comes to Jim. He feels old before his time, weary. He tells himself everything changes. This is the modern world. Things have to be different. But he wonders why all the changes seem to be for the worse. He wonders why a week doesn't pass without his men bringing in some 11-year-old with a gun already sporting notches. He wonders where his friend went, why he feels so hopelessly alone, why he feels so betrayed.
Oh, God.
And that's only used to foreshadow the fact that Azrael is making something to become the ultimate Batman.
Yeah.
Which, yeah.
It's it's really strong stuff, and I think that's definitely the best issue of this whole collection, in
Oh
my
yeah,
opinion.
it's great. Like the the actual conclusion to the arc is really damn good, but we don't get there. It takes way
Yeah.
too long to get there. Like I struggled with Funeral for a Friend, but like Funeral for a Friend, the issues that were bad there were just kind of meh. Like, just
Yeah.
kind of meh.
Yeah.
Bit overly long, but you know, clearly we were like we needed to fill some time, and they at least each issue at least had some really strong character moments
Hmm.
because you have all the Superman supporting cast,
Yeah.
um, reflecting on his death, plus some Justice League appearances. Whereas this, you have Azrael. Like this is the first time where we've actually spent some genuine time with a supporting cast member.
We could have spent so much more time like watching the Azrael Gordon relationship like grow and strain and then eventually break in this moment, and we skipped right to the breaking, and the breaking is good, but we missed so much development up to that point. That could have been really strong, but whatever.
So
On
this is
to Detective
Detective Comics
Comics 6.
675.
Yeah. This I did not love.
I like the opening, like the first
Yeah.
page
Yeah.
of okay, this is Azrael using guns.
Hmm.
This is called Midnight Duel. It's messy. He built himself some fucking flamethrowers, but here's the problem. This issue one, we go back to the Gun Hawk and Gun Bunny because
Yep.
oh look, written by Chuck Dixon.
Yep.
And Dixon isn't like a terrible writer,
No, Dixon wrote a lot of really great issues in this
but
stuff so far. Like, I mean,
but
he wrote the whole
there's
Joker three-parter in this.
but there
Um,
are things where the man Chuck Dixon will become kind of shines through, and a lot of this just turns out into a firefight.
yeah, that,
Like
that that is this whole issue, and I am perfectly fine skipping over most of this.
yes, I like the idea of Jean Paul Valley giving himself over to the system and essentially losing himself completely.
Hmm.
Now, there's some problems with that, mainly because we haven't had nearly enough time throughout Knightquest with John Paul Valley, the man. Like,
Hmm.
he's really kind of given himself over to the system before this. There really wasn't that internal struggle. So much of this issue then is just a firefight. Like, it's guns blazing. It is 20 pages of the 90s, the most 90s
Hmm.
90s that we've ever 90s. Like, when like if I think of 90s comics, I'm going to think of this and not in a good way.
Yeah,
Which is a thing because like in terms of like DC avoided quite a few of the pitfalls of the 90s as far as I'm aware
yeah, yeah.
because they were able to avoid it and they were able to bring themselves out of the 90s say earlier than apparently Marvel, which had the Clone Saga for go on way too long.
Hmm.
Um but yeah, there's a flamethrower.
We eventually defeat Gunhawk, who, because I guess Gun Bunny is out of commission from
Yeah,
last time,
she's in the hospital and
and that's pretty much that. That's all it is. I don't know. There's not much here to talk about. Um, but yeah, I
uh,
guess
and we end on a very nice image. And that's sort of where the arc ends. Now, let's just take a brief moment to talk about the search because it's at this point where in the Omni collection, this is where the search happens. Like,
mhm,
and it's a lot. It's great. You have Bruce in a wheelchair for most of it, but he's still, you know, intelligent. Alfred is there. Alfred dons the cape and cowl at one point because Bruce is still running himself ragged.
mhm.
It's mostly written by Denny O'Neil. It's 7 issues, and it ends with Chandra being saved, but sadly, she's had some regression issues because she's related to a villain. A lot of it takes place in England. The first couple issues are Justice League Task Force issues, so they feature Bronze Tiger and Green Arrow and a third character who I will not say the name of because the name's a slur.
Oh, is it the Green Lantern character?
No, it's a different character, different
Oh,
slur.
huh.
This is a Romany slur. Starts with the
Uh,
letter G.
Oh, okay. Well, all
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah, that one's a slur. But it's great issues. We actually get to see Bruce focusing on things. Alfred ends up leaving Bruce, like in anger, because Bruce will not just relax, and it's beautifully tragic, and it ends on a great note. And then he
Cool.
eventually, basically gets a message that things have gone wrong from Tim, so that we can lead into
Robin number 7, which is our
Night
last
Quest,
issue here.
the
Um,
conclusion.
the conclusion. First off, I love Tom Grummett's artwork in this.
It's so good. Also, he does the cover, which is great.
Mhm.
Um, you have Tim like straight on the cover, um, and because we focus this issue so much on Tim, it just feels everything feels right, right?
Mhm.
Like we open with Tim just passed out at home, sleep deprived, still dressed as Robin. Um, and it's like, oh shit, my housekeeper's home. Can't let her see my secret identity, which is great. Like Tim Drake as a character really shines here. Like
Mm.
he's I really want to kind of almost just read some of this Robin run in general, just because.
I mean, I suppose you could if you wanted to. I don't think
Yeah,
we're probably not going to cover on the podcast.
yeah, but like
Um,
he's a great character.
yeah,
It's a
yeah,
great
Tim's
thing.
awesome. Yeah.
He has lunch with Bruce, who Bruce kind of wants to retire. Tim hasn't quite filled him in on everything.
Hmm.
His dad has
Um,
come back from recovery, and it's such a sweet scene, like that reuniting of them.
hmm.
Um,
Bruce meets up with Jack, and they go back to his house, and it's nice. There's just some really nice scenes here. Bruce finds out because this is the first time that he's finding out that Azrael killed Abattoir, right?
yeah, this is the first time. It's like, wait, and Bruce is like, okay, why didn't you tell me? And I love that Bruce treats Tim with respect, like a partner, but also realizes Tim is still a teenager. Like Bruce realizes that he was in the wrong for putting so much on a kid's shoulders, basically.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
like, right, we're gonna fix this. We're breaking into the Batcave. And they break into the Batcave.
And they are soon met by Azrael, who takes a very firm stance on what he's doing with the Batman mantle, which is that Bruce will never get it back, and he tosses Bruce into the Bat computer and tells him to never come back, and um, basically, just solidifying Bruce's decision that he has to take the mantle back from Azrael. Um, and so him
Tim
and
gets to
Tim,
chase and try to run Azrael off the road, which I love this extended car chase.
oh yeah, it's really
It's
nice.
got some great inner monologue from Tim. Sadly, gets into a car crash and doesn't quite work.
Mhm.
And we end the issue partially on that, Reese is like, well, I'm going to have to bring in someone who is a master at these sort of things, who can train me back to be Batman again. And like, it's like, oh, I can think of one who might be interested in having me as a student, but she might want my soul in exchange. Good
Ooh,
night, Tim.
ooh, oh, it's so good,
It is
so
such a good
good,
ending. And
and
Tim's looking over his father, and that's where we end.
that
Night
is where we
Quest
leave off
is
NightQuest.
over. It's
Oh,
done.
finally, and
I
we now only have another 600 odd pages to go in the Nightfall saga.
However, these 600 odd pages are probably better than these
They are
600
most
odd
definitely
pages.
better than these 600 odd pages.
So what's
So,
interesting is I'll say it, there is a good story in Night Quest buried under all of this, but it's
mm,
buried deep.
very, very, very deep, I would say.
Um, the part of the problem is Asriel's, just so blatantly losing it from the beginning and not descending. Like he's already descended. So we're just waiting for the breaking point, but we're not building up any. A good writer would build up tension to get to that breaking point, but we don't do that. And John Palvalli, again, he's lacking an identity. Um, really, Selena Kyle's the only character with intelligence, and Tim being sidelined for so much of this is a
Yeah.
problem. We need some sort of this story is lacking some sort of grounding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is interesting because as we're recording this, I've seen some threads on Twitter about superhero movies that have lacked human grounding of non-powered side characters,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and
Oh,
that's
you're talking about the
exactly
Daredevil stuff?
yeah with the Daredevil stuff.
Yeah.
It was also I think it was a Gail Simone thread that I initially saw, or something she
Hmm.
might have retweeted. Um, and that's and it kind of clicked. That's part of the problem here, is that we
Yeah.
don't have that grounding of another character who is
Hmm.
interacting enough with Azrael,
Yeah.
and that could have been Tim. And like I get Tim being pushed away at the beginning, but we spend so long before Tim shows up again in any like actual capacity.
Yeah.
Um,
But this is stuff that we've gone over so many
a lot.
times throughout this
This is
episode.
I hate to end it on kind of a quiet note. Like
It's just not great. It's
it's
just it.
it's not great. It's like it's not offensively bad. Like
No,
that's a
no.
silver lining, and there are good individual issues,
Hmm.
but you need one. They took way too long, and like looking at Night's End, the way it's set up, it's clear that was a problem because it meant that they had to compress Night's End because there was a big event coming,
Yep.
a big DC Universe event that Bruce Wayne had to be a part of.
Yep.
Um,
Ugh, just sucks. Oh God.
um,
Anyway, that was Night Quest.
it's one you can skip a lot of.
Yeah. Next time we're covering Night's End. We are finishing the Nightfall saga on Fresh Face Comics. To give you guys an idea of what's coming up on the podcast after that, episode 40 will be another Batman episode. Then we are in the home stretch of our 1 to 50
Yeah, we
range.
begin the 1 to 50 countdown, like our
Yeah.
countdown to episode 50.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, I don't know what episode 40 is. I do have a very strong guess,
Mm-hmm.
which is very possibly correct. I do know what 41 is,
Because
though
yeah,
we
we're
won't.
planning on guest stuff for that.
Yes,
But we'll leave that for I guess episode 40 when we talk about it
when
more.
we talk about it,
Um,
I'm excited to reveal that one because I'm
I'll say this. And this is the first time I'm ever telling you about this. So to give you an idea what 41 to 50 is like, 41 you already know what it is. 42 to I believe 46 is its own sort of mini block with like more of like a focus on like the individual episodes within there, but it makes its own sort of connected block.
okay.
47 through 49 is its own block, and 50 is its own thing.
If it
So
is its
yeah,
own thing, okay.
that'll be obviously a celebration of, the fact that we've done 50 episodes and it's a special occasion kind of story. So
So
yeah,
yes, yeah. So and that is over the coming month. That'll bring us to September,
yeah. So
which is
holy
I'm
shit, that
excited.
feels so long away because we're recording this in early March.
Yes, we are.
Um,
We are. I will say this will also be the last episode that is recorded fairly in advance,
yeah,
just
starting with
based on the
Night's
dates.
End. Actually, so this will probably come up before our Night's End Q&A on Twitter. So if you never get a chance to really like participate in the Twitter or Discord Q&As that we do, you can follow us on Twitter. We always post those the day, many hours before we record. It is still day of, but it's hours before we record.
And if
And
we end up doing like a weekend recording, we'll do it like the day before because
we
sometimes
usually
with the
record
weekend
like earlier
recordings,
in the day.
yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, so be on the lookout for that. You can, as always, you can find our link trees down in the description below. Our social medias are there and other things that we're involved with online. So you go check those out. As far as the rest of the channel goes, I think what I'm assuming Breaking Brian episode 3 is out at this point.
Episode 3 would definitely be out at this point.
I believe so. That'll be out.
You're
We're
also
almost
getting very close to the end of season 1 in your Star Trek reactions.
yes, very close.
Um,
So be sure
I
to
think
check
I
those out.
think by the time this is out, you will have just released. I think Space Seed because
Space.
I've been going with you and I've been trying to plan that week's review in advance to
Okay. Oh yeah,
um
because you're going away.
because I'm going on vacation.
Yeah, which is why we've been recording so many episodes in advance. So yeah, yes, the space if Space Heat is out, I mean, fuck, go watch that because you're in for a treat with that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of cool things happening on the channel right now. You can check all those out. And yeah, what do you have going on? Anything you'd like to
Uh,
plug?
I have been still writing reviews. Follow me there. I haven't depending depending on what happens with the Wheel of Time TV show, I might be continuing my Wheel of Time in-depth analysis essays that I had been doing. Starting the Shadow Rising is my plan at some point during March, during this month. So yeah, go check that out, as
Awesome.
well as books and things. Um, Also on Twitter, at the end of each month, I have been sort of giving my 4 like top reads of the month. So in a couple of days, you'll see that for the month of March. Uh,
Fantastic. Sounds good.
so yeah,
So yeah, all this stuff and more will be linked down in the description below. As always, you can buy the book that we just covered on Amazon. I'll leave a link down in the description below, as well as our next book, which will be Night's End, so you can go check those out. And I guess that about does it, doesn't it?
that
All
does
right,
it.
cool. Yeah, thank you all so much for listening. Until next time, this has been Joey Morgan.
And Jacob Licklider,
Goodbye.
goodbye.